All right, welcome everybody. So this is our final session for the 16th annual Homes Within Reach conference. I am so excited to have all of you join us over the past 3 days and hope that you were able to hear some really good thought-provoking presentations. With our presentation today, really looking at landlord tenant mediation lessons from the ground. This really is a continuation of a conversation that we've been having throughout really the pandemic. And so before we get into the meat of the presentation, I do want to just quickly introduce my amazing panel. So going back to earlier in the year, the Housing Alliance was able to provide financial assistance to 6 communities to help them establish local landlord-tenant mediation programs. The panel today is 5 of those communities who are able to join us and share the lessons that they've learned and what they've been able to do when with this funding opportunity and with mediation in their community, as we all really work to address the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I just want to quickly introduce the panel and of course introduce myself. My name is Gail Schwartz. For those who may not know me, I'm the Associate Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives here at the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania. Our panel is, we have Sandy Ballard from the Dauphin County Bar Association, Susan Jordan with Susquehanna Valley Mediation, Rita Macy, Fayette County Community Action Agency, Renaya Odin, Advos Mediation and Restorative Practices, Linda Paw, Pocono Mountains United Way. So we have a really robust panel, folks that are coming from all different backgrounds, from a legal background, from social services background, from mediation background, you know, who all came to this space of, you know, what can we do to support landlords and tenants and not only support them individually, but support them in working together to find their way through this crisis, as you know, so much is still unknown and resources haven't always flowed as quickly or as easily as we have wanted them to. So really looking at mediation as one model to really support people, support relationships, and ultimately prevent evictions that can have lasting harmful impacts for both the tenant as well as landlords. So just to do some quick level setting around mediation, oftentimes I myself come from a social service background. I, you know, formally am trained as a social worker. So to me, mediation is just like a specific kind of conversation that you just go in and you help two people who are arguing or not getting along and just being a third person and helping them settle it. And, you know, that's it. But in the course of this work and in the past year, I've learned that mediation, while it can be that thing, it's also actually a very robust and very thoughtful and structured process that is really formal in dispute resolution. And mediation is definitely something that has been around for a very, very long time. It may be new in sort of this landlord-tenant space, but mediation is a service that has been used in other types of disputes, such as divorces and child custody and, you know, maybe strained business relationships or neighbor tensions. So this is definitely not something new, but we are really maximizing it to help address eviction as well as the complexity of the eviction landscape, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, just a quick overview of what mediation as this really formal service is. It is a discussion between two disputing parties that is facilitated by a third party that has been trained and does have a specialized cultivated skill set. Mediation is really intended to explore the conflict from both sides and empower the parties to resolve their conflict. So the mediator isn't solving it for them, but helping people come to the resolution. Success in mediation really is defined as the creation of a plan which both parties agree to and adhere to. Mediators and mediation programs do not necessarily have to be affiliated with the legal system. Mediators come from all kinds of backgrounds, whether it's social work, teachers, any sort of social services, counselors, anybody like that. Again, they just go through the training and have worked to cultivate the skill set. And then mediators do have to meet certain qualifications that have been established by local and national organizations and programs. So, as I said earlier, mediation is a service that has been around for many, many years. There's a very robust and formalized network within Pennsylvania to support mediators in developing those skills and also specializing into certain subject matter areas. Such as landlord tenant mediation, but again, in the other areas where we've seen mediation used more traditionally, like family law, things like that. So again, sort of going back to what I was saying earlier, mediation is a project that we started very, very quickly at the Housing Alliance as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. We were already looking very hard at the eviction crisis. The eviction crisis is not new in Pennsylvania. We had, over 98,000 eviction filings in Pennsylvania in 2019 alone. So this was already such a serious crisis in our communities. And we were already looking at, the full spectrum of interventions to help prevent evictions. But then, of course, this really got raised to such a degree of urgency when the pandemic hit and we started to see, just the economic fallout of, all of these people getting laid off from their jobs, these industries that often, really are low-paying industries. And so these folks that were getting laid off were already, so economically vulnerable. And we also know that landlords oftentimes are not big corporate entities, but are mom and pop shops who maybe have a couple rental properties on the side. So we were just seeing a lot of vulnerability on both sides of the relationship. So we, definitely started doing some work and some webinars and education and outreach to landlords and organizations that are supporting tenants within our membership, and really started to do some education within ourselves and our organization and within our membership at the Housing Alliance around mediation. We really looked heavily to our partners in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, who at the time were the only mediation programs in the state. They have been phenomenal resources. That's Just Mediation Pittsburgh, as well as Good Shepherd Mediation in Philadelphia. Sue Wasserkrug was on the panel this morning's Affinity on the eviction crisis, but they really helped us understand these programs and understand the value that they have in not only preventing the eviction, but really saving the landlord-tenant relationship and helping restore that relationship. So from there, we created a network, again, because, really, I think in times of crisis, the best people to help you is the person next to you, is your neighbor, is your peer, is your professional peer. And so we really wanted to create a community, as many communities we knew were exploring that. So together we learned about, more about what mediation is, what are strategies for funding these programs, and of course, how do we center and incorporate those with lived experience in helping design and implement and do outreach about these programs. By that point, we had come into some money, and we were able to take the information that we learned together along with our peers, put it into a toolkit, and release that toolkit along with a small funding opportunity, which is how we got connected to our amazing panelists. So that is a very quick and high-level overview of how we got to the point where we are today. The mediation network is still meeting. We will be having another meeting at the end of January, Thursday, I think the 27th. It's the last Thursday of the month at 3 o'clock, but we will review that at the end. But right now, I think more than anything, we just want to hear from the communities that have gotten these programs up and running. So, again, when looking at landlord tenant mediation, we didn't just want to focus on mediation in of itself. We really wanted to make sure we had a holistic approach, that it wasn't just mediation, that there was connection to social services and supports, that people were able to access, resources, whether it was rental assistance or food assistance or any childcare assistance, whatever was causing instability in the housing opportunity. And of course, in the event that mediation isn't successful, or you want to make sure that the agreements that people are coming to are in line with the law, you do want to have strong partnerships with legal support. So we put out six grants. We had, I think, 28 applications received. So there's a lot of communities beyond those who are going to be speaking today that are exploring this. And we are just going to continue to share with each other what we learn and what we know about these programs and how we can further expand this model across Pennsylvania. So with that, I would like to introduce our first community representative, and that is Rita Macy, the Director of Customer Service from Fayette Community Action. So I will let Rita talk briefly about her program. And Rita, just let me know when you want me to go to the next slide.
Thank you, Gail. Good afternoon. As Gail said, I'm Rita Massey. I am the Director of Customer Service at Fayette County Community Action. I have been in this position as customer service just for a very short time. Prior to that, I was the project manager for our housing department for over 10 years. So lots of experience with working with landlords and working with tenants who are facing eviction. Our Fayette County Community Action Agency is in Southwestern Pennsylvania. We are a nonprofit housing counseling organization with the goal of working with folks to make them self-sufficient, to bring them out of that poverty, to help them to succeed. Our housing program is fairly large. Our mediation program is very new. Gail, you can go ahead to the next slide. We started this program with this grant. We've been doing mediation with landlords through the housing counseling model for many, many years, but using this grant and the training that we've learned from the Housing Alliance, we have changed the program to be working more so with trying to stop those evictions, mediating with the landlord and the client more in that housing counseling framework. What can we do? Wrapping the services around, helping, but also doing that follow through with the landlords and the tenants after we have worked with them to make sure that the situation has been resolved and the tenant is living up to their end of the bargain, and so is the landlord. So one of our big partners in Fayette County is our legal aid society. We've been partners with them for many grants for many years, but this one, for this particular grant, we work with them more so in the area of if it's something that we can't do and we do believe legal help needs to be involved, we work with our legal aid department for that piece. If you look at the next question, we're serving the tenants and landlords of Fayette County. Anybody who needs assistance, and during COVID, that sure has changed. And folks who have never worked with before have come out of the woodwork that we're working with, because COVID has affected everyone throughout the county in different ways, shapes, and forms. Our program, as I said, we have a very robust landlord group in our county. We've worked with landlords for so many years. I'm going to say it's well over 30 years that we've worked with landlords. But for this program, they have to be willing to do a little bit more work and have that constant contact with our staff, so we know that things are working. So, we've worked with the landlords and the tenants, and the new relationship that we're developing is one with our magisterial district justice judges, because we don't necessarily work with them prior to the filing, but now that's a relationship we're working with to make sure that if we can avoid those legal costs to our tenants and to the landlords, we want to do that. Very small portion of what we've worked with. We're trying, we're growing, we're expanding, doing the best we can, but we're so thankful for the training that we got that's being able to help us even more. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Linda, the Eviction Mediation Manager from the Pocono Mountains United Way.
Thank you, Gail, and welcome everyone. Like she said, I'm Linda Paugh. I'm the Eviction Mediation Manager at the Pocono Mountains United Way. And the Pocono Mountains United Way has always been at the forefront of meeting needs in Monroe County. When the pandemic first started and everything shut down in our community, there were so many people who had lost their jobs and were facing possible eviction, needing rental assistance and all that kind of things. So our response was always to immediately address those needs. And I was presented with the opportunity for this Landlord Tenant Eviction Mediation Program as a new program. I ended up training. I had originally, I should tell you first, came from a position of being information and referral specialist at Pocono Mountains United Way. So I've had extensive years in the area of what's available in our community as far as resources and a lot of relationships built. So it's kind of a natural fit for me. But being a new thing, it was brand new to me. I did training through the Good Shepherd's mediation, which was excellent. And I felt very, very prepared. So when we received funding originally for the CARES Act to help us do this as a response to the COVID-19 crisis, so that what we are doing is making this you can go on to the next slide. Yeah, we are doing tenants. This is for tenants who have been economically impacted by the COVID-19 crisis and are at 200% or below the federal poverty level. And that's what we need to do for the original funding that we received. So my first job to do with this was to reach out to do an extensive outreach, which I reached out to local service agencies, churches, food pantries, property management companies, individual private landlords, real estate organizations, legal services, courts, and local government, as well as legislators in our community. A press release and interviews with local TV news stations also helped me to get the word out as well. We've gotten a huge response from that, being able to get a lot of referrals. But support, guidance, and funding also from the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania was very, very helpful in continuing with the success of this program. I've had one successful mediation at this point and had many other referrals, but they did not qualify for our program, but I've been able to assist them with referrals with agencies that can help them, whether it's the rental assistance, legal assistance with our local legal aid society, or even things like food pantries to help them free up money for rent. I went into this not knowing what I was doing originally, but with the successful training from both Good Shepherd and from the Housing Alliance, I feel very confident in what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. And I'm really looking forward to serving many, many more people in our home state through their mediation. I do want to say that with the moratorium ending, and when rental assistance, some of the rental assistance go, we are going to be seeing a tremendous amount of people looking for help with mediation to avoid eviction. So I do want to thank the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania for your partnership and your support and allowing me to share this today.
Thank you, Linda. Next, we have Renaya with the Advise Mediation and Restorative Practices.
Yes, hello. So yes, my name is Renaya. I'm the mediation case manager. And Gail, you can actually go on to the next slide. Thank you. So we have partnerships with all types of organizations. In regards to the landlord tenant mediation, we have connected with LHOP and Tabor. And with that connection, we have a referral source program where we'll receive referrals and distribute the mediation case accordingly. Now, we were able to hold a mediation training, which allowed some of the staff from LHOP and Tabor to come and take our training and become volunteer mediators. So we'll receive the referrals, and we've actually received our first one in this past week. It's very exciting. We haven't seen too many referrals. We have been posting on social media, trying to just get the word out there. And we're thinking that if we can get a foot in the door with maybe one or two landlords, the word will spread. But essentially, we post on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. So we receive referrals from outside sources and from our partners, and we recently connected with the Elizabethtown Police Department as well with a rapid mediation referral program to receive referrals as well. So our referral sources have been getting extremely stronger, but we're not seeing too many referrals coming in. So we hope that in the sense of getting things moving, the word will spread and everybody will see the need for mediation. Yeah, but our goal is to serve up to 30 homes in collaboration, and our goal is to get both parties to come to an agreement that satisfies for both of them, and yeah, and see if we can get them to stick with the agreement for about 6 months and prevent any evictions in that time frame as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Renaya. And next we have Susan Jordan, the Executive Director of Susquehanna Valley Mediation.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Gail. Thank you for coming, everyone. Thank you to the Housing Alliance for having us here and for this opportunity, both at the conference and also with this grant. As Gail said, my name is Susan Jordan. I'm the director of a very small but busy community mediation center in the center of the state. We serve Union, Snyder, and Northumberland counties. We have 4 staff and 35 volunteer mediators on our roster. Community mediation, I think it's just interesting to note that it was really designed to address conflict at its earliest stages. It was actually written into the Civil Rights Act in 1964 to prevent court involvement where possible, to help people who've been marginalized have more of a voice. And so I just feel like this program really fits into that, fits into the roots and the purpose of community mediation. So we're really glad to be part of it for that reason as well. This is a new program for us. We have a lot of other programs we do, as Gail mentioned, some of the traditional divorce and custody mediation, and we work with our Court of Common Pleas. We do prison reentry mediation, neighbor, employer, those kinds of things. Community mediators really are available for anyone in the community that needs, that's having conflict, that needs some help and support. So, but we're excited to have this formal program, and it's really a first for us. So you can go on to the next slide. The program, we wrote this grant and are working very closely with the Union Snyder Community Action Agency. They're our main partner. This is the first kind. We share a building, but this is really the first formal partnership that we've had. And it's really an integrated program, as Gail showed the building blocks. We're really working with our legal services so that we can provide simple, easy to understand legal information to folks, that they have access to the housing counselors and housing service, and then the mediation service as well. So it's a complex puzzle, and we really want people, no matter what door they're coming through, that they have access to all of that, rather than just mediation, because we know that without knowing what's available, mediation can't be as helpful to folks. So I think the other thing is we really want our program to be accessible, inclusive, regardless of who's entering from where. They're treated with dignity. They're treated with the utmost respect that we all want. And I think the folks at Community Action are really good at that. And I think I'm really excited for this partnership. The key aspects of developing the program, we've worked with a lot of different partners. We've worked with our magisterial district judge to help us with a template, to create an easy to use template for mediators to make an agreement. We've talked with landlords to learn from them. We've worked with our local housing options team to just get the word out. I had a conversation with a Methodist minister this morning. Our faith community is a really important part of our informal networks here. So really those partnerships are going to be where the referrals come from. We're hoping, and sometimes those folks see people at an earlier stage of conflict than formal service providers. So we're really working to get the word out to them. So I think that's all for now.
Great, thank you so much. And next we have Sandy Ballard, Public Services Coordinator with Dauphin County Bar Association. So Sandy.
Thanks, Gail. And really I want to share our program is run with Mid-Penn Legal Services, our legal services provider. And it is a joint program that we really started last spring. When COVID hit, we made some public presentations and on different topics that might be of concern regarding COVID and legal issues. So one of those that was highly well attended was our landlord tenant one. And we had Matt Rich from Mid-Penn Legal Services and an attorney who represents landlords speak. And it was a very good back and forth, having both of them on the Zoom call at the same time. And from there, it really grew. Jordan Cunningham was the private attorney who worked with Matt. And we decided that we would like to build on that discussion by reaching out to landlords and to our court system. And we like many people, had a planning committee and tried to include as many partners as possible. And we had our first mediations in October, and that was actually at the magistrate district judge's office. We have 13, but we started with 1. And we did 3 mediations with volunteers who are attorneys trained as mediators. And they settled 2 of the 3 mediations. It was in a little conference room right there. The hearing was postponed and the parties went right in a conference room. Now, and the premise of our grant proposal and the funding that we did receive is on the importance of automation, because if we want to roll it out fully to the 13 magistrate district justices, we really need to be able to facilitate that and we don't have the funding, obviously, to hire more staff. So we're using a lot of really great automation, and we're offering the clinic that is on Zoom now every Tuesday at 9. And we've had 10 mediations to date, a little update from the chart, and we've settled 9 of them. It's wonderful using the technology of Zoom rooms so that you start with a general discussion. And much like your building blocks, we include a legal discussion about the legal issues. And we have someone from our help office to talk about the financial assistance that may be available. And next week, we're adding housing and budgeting counseling. And those 3 people remain on the Zoom call and are available to jump into the mediations, to go into the Zoom rooms to answer questions if needed. We also are delighted to use some students, law students and others who can work with the mediators to document and facilitate the discussion. So we are excited and about the opportunity. We do need both the landlord and the tenant to register. That is a little bit different for our program because it takes a lot of time. If you have one party who agrees, it takes a lot of time to get that other party to agree. And there's a lot of staff time spent on that. So we're asking, depending on whether the landlord or the tenant register first, we ask them to reach out to the other side. So that's our program in a nutshell, and we are delighted and very honored to receive the funding.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and now we're going to get into kind of just an open conversation. Again, to reiterate an earlier point, this panel comes from very diverse backgrounds. We have the social service providers, the mediation providers, the legal providers. So all of these folks who kind of zeroed in on the same intervention and the same solution as they approach it from their different industries, potentially their different silos, how that works, and really breaking down those silos, creating those partnerships. So my first question is going to be for our social service providers on the panel, that is Linda and Rita. Your agencies are longtime emergency rental assistance providers working with landlords and tenants. Oftentimes within these programs, case managers or program administrators help negotiate the landlord-tenant relationships to get parties to agree to accept the assistance. How does your new mediation program differ from that type of interaction with landlords and tenants?
Well, I can speak for the Pocono Mountains United Way. Sorry, Rita, did you want to go?
Fine, you're fine.
With the Pocono Mountains United Way, we have funded agencies that we fund to handle rent programs. So they have their own caseworkers who handle it. So we don't specifically do any mediation between landlord and tenant through that program. So this new program, the Landlord Tenant Eviction Mediation, is very different because I'm actually doing a mediation between landlord and tenant to come to an agreement.
In our program, we are using the housing counselors who are at our agency who are, nationally certified. Yes, we may have that emergency rental money assistance available to the person, but we are also using that money or that time to try to come to an acceptable agreement, because most of our emergency rental assistance money is a one-time, 1 month kind of deal. Especially during COVID, we're seeing now it's almost 12 months, folks that are behind. So that mediation portion of those client interactions, tenant interactions, is to figure out how can we solve this problem as best as possible, especially during these times. Someone had said earlier, January 31st is coming very quick. I think life as we know it is going to get much, much busier. So being able to use the mediators for those ongoing harder cases is how we're using them here at our agency.
Great, thank you. Next, my next question is for the mediation agencies. Your organizations have been providing mediation services in your communities for years. though landlord tenant mediation is a new service area for you both. What are some of the more surprising or interesting things that you have learned about landlord tenant issues as you've started to come into this space more? Renaya, would you like to go first?
Sure, yes. So one thing that was very surprising was a lot of people aren't trying to get the mediation. In the sense, especially with everything going on, you would think that some people might want to look for these type of services or reach out to find these type of services. And as we've been posting more on social media, we haven't been seeing more of a turnout that we thought. So I think that there may be a little skepticism in considering mediation from the landlords and the tenants. So I think that it creates a space of a little uncertainty. But I think that once they know what we have to offer, they'll want to get it and be a part of these services. Yeah.
I was thinking about how there have been surprises and also similarities with what we've with other programs. And one of the similarities I think has to do with that referral challenge. I think it's in part because people are reluctant to talk about things that are hard. And so people wait until there's a crisis point before getting help. And it's something that's always going to be a challenge, and that's why these relationships and referral sources are so important, to help people just like test the water and realize that it's going to be okay to have these and that it'll actually be very helpful. I think the things that have surprised me, first of all, just what a huge job it is with these community action agencies. I have a whole new respect for the work that they do with navigating these very difficult housing aid, housing support programs, just all the complex requirements for folks to get help. So that's been, it's been helpful for me to learn more about that. I think also in our area, we're in a very rural area, a lot of small landlords, mom and pop kind of places. I think I had this idea of landlords being these, big operations that were, impersonal and maybe thinking a lot about those power dynamics between landlords and tenants. But there are actually a lot of folks that are really just kind of making it, just scraping by with their properties. And this has been really hard on them too. And I think I was in a meeting with Sue from Good Shepherd, and she was talking about how landlords were very skeptical of this program initially, and how in Philadelphia, they've really come around and are now asking for it to be expanded because they're finding it helpful. And I think that's the nature of this robust thing that Housing Alliance has recommended and that we've tried to implement, is really getting all of these pieces in place so that both landlords and tenants are being supported, because they're both part of making this work. Also, I think one other similarity is just how similar conflict is between things. So whether it's custody or other things, like breakdowns in communication, people avoid conflict, avoid talking to each other, and it makes a problem worse. Things like that are just very similar and familiar to us. So.
That's an interesting point. Oftentimes I say that the landlord-tenant relationship is the most personal of business relationships. And so, especially when you're dealing with these small-time operators, you actually tend to know your landlord fairly well and feel very close to them. And our next question is for Sandy, who's coming from the legal services paradigm. Your model is the only model that is court-based on the panel today. What advice do you have for people who are looking to engage their local court system for a similar project? How did you really get that conversation started with the court system?
Well, we're very blessed in Dauphin County to have a long and strong relationship with our court system. The Bar Association, Legal Services, and the court system really are the three legs. We need all three of them to be able to help the community, low-income folks in our community with legal problems. And I think all three of those legs are needed. So, and again, in some counties, the judges are not as supportive, perhaps, and we are very, very appreciative of our judges' support. So we tried to involve them right at the beginning with the planning stage. We met with the chief judge and the magistrate district judge and the court administrator to try to work out a process. I also want to give a shout out to the folks in Philadelphia because they're doing a great job. And I wish, my prayer would be that all jurisdictions would require mediation before eviction, and that all jurisdictions would require representation for renters before they're evicted. Philadelphia does that now, and that is a model we would all try to emulate.
That's a really, really good point. Has anybody else on the panel today started those conversations with your local court system to get that better partnership formed?
Well, I know I reached out to the district office for the magisterial districts, and the one mediation I did have, when that landlord went to the MPJ court to file for an eviction, he was asked to go and try mediation first and referred to me. So that's what happened. So, and I've since heard a couple of others that are being referred as well. And one of the biggest problems I've had why I haven't had any more evictions mediations is because there's been some landlords that do not cooperate. They don't want to mediate. And I think Susan had mentioned that there's sometimes I think they're just afraid. They don't understand fully what it's going to be about. They don't want the hard conversation. I don't know. But I find it's more the smaller landlords, the independent ones that are willing to mediate. Some of the ones that are involved with some that have property managers working for them, it's been a little tougher. So I'm really hoping in time they'll realize the significance of this.
We sat down with one of our magisterial district judges. We've had varying degrees of interest between the MDJs in our area. One of them has been very helpful, and one of the things he said was he really recommended, in his experience, landlords wait. Eviction is kind of a last resort. Filing an eviction is a last resort, and often they're fed up at that point. And so he really encouraged, if at all possible, even just before that filing fee happens, if we could get to people before that. And also he encouraged us to include the filing fee as a point of discussion in the mediation if it's already been filed, because he said sometimes that can be a sore point for landlords when they've gone to the trouble to file and then they've made all these concessions and now then they're still left with the filing fee. So he's been giving us some little tips like that, also helping connect us with landlords and things like that. So it's been we wanted to see if we could get an automatic referral, but he didn't. Our president judge said that they checked and that wasn't something that they could do, that they could order, that we have an arrangement with other programs for court-ordered mediation. But in this case, they said they couldn't do that, but that it would be more of an informal referral.
Interesting. But I think that does speak to the point that, it is good when you are making these partnerships to be aware of, the rules and guidance that your other partners have to abide by, and making sure that you come to those conversations with that kind of open mind and respect for their limitations. I think in general, just, for the entire panel, what is a piece of advice that you have for communities out there who are in the very beginning stages of really starting to create these programs and starting these conversations? What's one piece of advice that you have for them?
I think what Linda suggested, if you can get to your judges and the magistrate district judges and somehow encourage them to encourage others. And, you know, it's not an official rule, but that sure would be great to get them to register and give this a try before filing. That is really the best. Now, I think you need to have both parties, and that's a little tricky. But I think if you can encourage them, because people tend to listen to what a judge or a judge's office tells them, and sometimes they might have more weight than what they get from their local United Way or a counselor or something like that, perhaps.
I'd like to say, look into partnerships. The population that we serve, it's not just, eviction is not just the problem. It may have been derived from a lot of different problems, financial, budgeting, a lot of different problems that we can help solve. And I think that if you look at the other organizations that might be surrounding your organization, you can help more. Like, we'll be able to help more and maybe prevent things from happening and spread the word about our resources and about opportunities that we have for people.
I would echo the partner comment. It's always better to not go it alone, but I would also say don't try to reinvent the wheel. There are so many resources out there. I may be biased, but I find mediation people to be so generous. The folks in Pittsburgh, at Good Shepherd, have freely shared documents. We have created some of our own documents. I'm very willing to share whatever I have for, for free. Don't try to start on your own. There's a lot of support in Pennsylvania to do this. So you can get a jump start on it with a lot of support.
Now, Rita or Linda?
I just wanted to echo that as well, what Susan just said, because it was Good Shepherd that really got us going. I mean, the training I had through them was incredible. And like you said, very generous with the forms and everything else you need. And then, of course, with the Housing Alliance too, as well, the programs you've offered and the seminars and the webinars and the funding we received, all of it, you just need that kind of support to get started in a program like this. And once you do, when you have that kind of support, it goes very smoothly. I mean, you learn what you need to do and it really works, but you need support. You can't do it on your own.
Yeah, I'm gonna ditto echo everything everyone else has said. And another piece is, don't be afraid to think about trying it. Like, we probably all hesitated at first and said, oh, do we really want to do this? But, it's the benefit of the tenants that we serve and the landlords in our community. So, even if you do one or two a year, it's still benefiting that one or two people, the one or two landlords, but it's also having that overall benefit to the community.
That's a great point. That is absolutely a great point. Now, I think outreach, especially with a new program like that, I think anything around eviction is met with such skepticism and resistance, particularly from the landlord community, but also from the tenant community. So again, sort of looking at what have you been doing with outreach? I think outreach is also so much harder right now, given the pandemic and everything else that is going on in the world of civil unrest. And, there's just a lot happening and cutting through that noise to say, yes, we know that you're struggling and we have this intervention to help. So what are some of the ideas that you're trying, and maybe some out of the box solutions that we can even brainstorm here today?
Well, I know with outreach was the biggest step we had to do. I mean, we have to let people know what you have. And with the limitations of the pandemic and not being able to maybe meet people in person, I did a lot of outreach through email initially, getting email addresses through a lot of partners we knew, and did get a great response from that. I was able to also at that same time email a flyer that we had designed for the program. Those that I couldn't reach by email or email addresses kicked back, I made phone calls. I did a lot of networking with different landlords that I knew personally who also sent the word out and were very supportive. And it just kind of went out. Like I said, what I mentioned in my talk, how all the different places I reached out to, I am getting referrals now from all of those locations from everybody. And so it's worked. And we also have a really awesome social media team at our office. It's not my strength, but it's theirs. And they've done a really fantastic job of doing on social media. We also had the opportunity, our Vacation Visitors Bureau did a nice press release for us. And we also had 2 local TV news stations that contacted me for interviews. And right now, my phone's ringing off the hook from referrals from the news story. So
Oh,
that's another option. And even in COVID, I was able to do an in-person interview. We do it very socially distanced. They have those long microphones now. Everybody wears
Mhm.
masks, but it can be done.
That's a really, really interesting. I didn't even think of, just a radio show or local news. Any other thoughts from folks? I know, Renaya, you guys have done some direct outreach to landlords in your community. How did that go?
It went pretty well. I think that the idea of it is appealing. I think really if the tenant will agree to it is kind of the hesitation. I wanted to also add on to what Linda said. We've been doing the social media as well. And we recently realized that we still have the newspapers and the radio stations. So me and our staff, we've been talking about that as well. So yes, I agree with that. The radio station, because everyone listens to the radio, but not everyone's on social media. So I do think that that's a great idea.
And we were very lucky to have one of the large landlord entities join our planning group. And we are currently trying to schedule, we have I think it's about 16 people waiting for mediations with the public housing, the Harrisburg Housing Authority. And so, they've kind of agreed overall that they're going to go with mediation. And so if you can get a bulk agreement, I guess that's kind of what you were saying with, getting the tenants to agree to try it. I mean, the landlords up front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen a couple of those kind of strategic partnerships between like housing authorities or affordable housing providers who are a little bit more mission driven, but I think there's really good data to capture, right? Because at the end of the day, it's still a landlord-tenant relationship, and you can say that you were able to successfully resolve. I'm reminding that a successful resolution means that the landlord gets what they need to, the tenant gets what they need to, and nobody has to go through with the eviction or even start the eviction. So I think, again, sort of, as we navigate this landscape, which of course is always changing, right? Especially with the moratoriums, and how does that motivate people? And I think, Rita, you've done the most mediations out of anybody. Have you noticed any sort of ebbs and flows as deadlines are maybe coming closer and then they move away with these with the moratorium and like the recent extension of the CDC moratorium?
The closer that deadline gets, the more the phones ring. So I make sure I keep muting myself because my phone keeps ringing here. The more the phone rings, the more people, or the emails that are coming in. We had lots of folks who got assistance through the PHFA Cares, the rental assistance piece. They're wondering what's going to happen now with the new one. So, the conversations never stop. but as things change, it tends to be put more to the forefront. I think February 1st is going to be interesting. And I don't know if we can't mediate, especially if a program can pay 1 or 2 months and you can't mediate the other 4 or 5, it's going to be there. We're going to be busy with the mediation piece, because I don't know where all these homeless people are going to go.
Mhm.
Right, because the assistance isn't enough.
No.
You know, we've had the same problem. You know, if you've got a $10,000 difference and you can only get 2,000 tops, it's not close enough. The assistance has to be more.
So I think that really gives us kind of collectively as a community a unique opportunity to think about, like, what is it that you're seeing in your mediation programs that can then be fed to our decision makers to say, like, look, we have all people at the table coming to find solutions, but you know, negotiation, mediation, and compromise can only go so far. We do need more financial resources. And so really looking at what can mediation do to serve those greater community advocacy needs.
The other thing we need in our county is more affordable low-income housing.
Yes.
A number of our partners had a meeting with Senator Casey today, and I said, and I didn't need to, because I know they already know, but I sent that that comment to them around need for funds for housing. I mean, it's a huge issue, and as you said, you can only get so far with sitting down at the table together if there's nothing there for folks. So that's why I think all of these pieces are so important. People need to know what their legal rights are and responsibilities. They need more housing assistance at this time, and then, you know, to be able to come together.
Excellent, excellent. So on that note, we have come to the end of our hour. Again, you know, the Housing Alliance is continuing to convene our mediation peer exchange network, where again, you know, all of the folks who are on today's panel are a part of it. But again, we're just people out there in the world trying to do this work and coming together and sharing what we're learning and what we're trying amongst each other, because you know, there's no rule book or manual for how to work through a pandemic. And so having our community and our fellow peers is the best resources to help us figure out and try the different solutions to get us through the end of this and into recovery. So I invite folks to participate in that meeting. I also invite folks to hang out with us a little bit later. We do have a networking event immediately after this session, where we can continue all of these conversations just informally as friends and colleagues. So I want to thank you all for coming to this workshop. I want to thank you for coming to this conference. I want to thank you for the amazing work that you all are doing across Pennsylvania to help put safe, decent homes, affordable homes within reach of all Pennsylvanians. So thank you, and have a great afternoon, everybody. And I know I'm going to be seeing you all at the networking event. Take care.